Nets with Nyla. I am your host, Nyla. Before we get too far into things, I'm going to give a quick introduction of myself and then we can head straight to basketball and give you a rundown of what we're going to be talking about. First off, again, my name is Nyla. I'm a sophomore at the University of South Carolina, uh, going for my bachelor's in broadcast journalism, aspiring to be a TV sports analyst, concentrating on the NBA and hopefully expanding to the NFL as well. That's the introduction. Here's the rundown. We're going to recap the NBA Finals, talk about some of these injuries that piled up on us in the playoffs, and then just hit on the trades and free agency things that have been happening with about 1.5 weeks into free agency. Starting with the NBA Finals, the Oklahoma City Thunder won against the Indiana Pacers in 7 games. Great series, our first 7 game series of the NBA Finals since the 2016 Warriors versus Cavs. It was another thriller. The whole series was amazing. Of course, your Finals MVP was SGA. He also won the regular season MVP and the scoring title, one of the greatest individual seasons ever. Uh, with his stats, along with his accomplishments, and of course the championship. Of course, the big question coming out of the NBA Finals, which was the same big question coming out of the Celtics championship, same question that came out of the Denver Nuggets championship, same question that came out of the Milwaukee Bucks championship was, is this going to become a dynasty? Can they repeat? How many more can they get? So starting off just with how many more can they get? I think within the span of 7 to 10 years, they can get 2 more. So 3 in total. Uh, I, however, when it comes to repeating, don't believe that they'll be able to repeat. We haven't seen a team repeat since Golden State Warriors. We haven't seen a dominant run by defending champions, excuse me. Um, when Milwaukee Bucks won the championship in 2021 and 2022, they didn't make it out the second round. 2023, the Nuggets won. The next year, they didn't make out the second round because that was 2023. They won. 2024, it was Celtics versus Mavs. It was a Mavs Minnesota Western Conference. And so this year, and then the Celtics. Celtics, you kind of give them a pass, give them a little bit of a break because they did have injuries throughout the regular season. And of course, Jason Tatum goes down with an Achilles injury in the playoffs. So you give them a bit of a pass, but I think they probably would have made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. I don't want to disrespect the Indiana Pacers, but just thinking about it now, if it was Indiana Celtics, the Celtics make it to the NBA Finals. If it was Indiana versus the Celtics, I think the Celtics comfortably win. But anyways, going back to OKC, I just don't think it's hard to come back with that same hunger and energy and determination and focus and motivation a second year in a row. It's hard to do that. It's hard to go from being on a parade, being celebrated, being talked about all year, going into the next NBA season. The Oklahoma City Thunder will be the headline, will be the story, and to go from a team that was always chasing it, chasing the trophy, chasing the next step, chasing the Western Conference Finals, chasing everything, to now get it and have other teams trying to chase after you to take it from you is a bit different. So to repeat, I don't think they will repeat. And then in terms of a dynasty, I think if you look back at the other dynasties, there's a key thing that all of them have. So just really quickly, just a couple of dynasties. You see, you have the Warriors. Um, it depends on how you want to break down the San Antonio Spurs, but for me, it's been a dynasty since 19. We can start from 1999, and so that's about a 15-year dynasty. where they consistently won 50 games, consistently won 50 games, consistently in the playoffs. Um, so you have the San Antonio Spurs, the Warriors, Lakers with the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe. Then you have the Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan, the Showtime Lakers with Magic and Kareem. So you look at all five of those teams. Magic and Kareem, top 10 players. Spurs got Tim Duncan, top 10 player. Chicago Bulls had Michael Jordan, top 10 player. Lakers had Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, top 10 player. Warriors had Steph Curry, top 10 player. So at the very least, these are top 12 of the greatest players of all time. And while SGA had an amazing season, he's not on that level. And to be a dynasty, you have to have one of the top 12 best players. That's usually how that works. To be a long dynasty, you have to have one of the top 12 players of all time. Because if you're just great and not a legend, it usually doesn't work out for you. On top of not just me thinking SGA is not top 10, the salary cap, the hard cap, the second apron is not going to allow for teams to continue to build to add stars. And while OKC does have trade assets galore, they're not going to be able to pay people the money that they deserve. And we know when people don't get the money they deserve, you can go elsewhere looking for it. So just to put in perspective, SGA, OKC just extended SGA to a 4-year deal of $285,405,792. So he'll be making over $71 million a year. That's it. That's him. Isaiah Hartenstein contract will be up in 2026. So this following season. Right now, Isaiah Hartenstein is making $29 million. To sign him again, what is that going to be? $35 million a year? Lou Dort contract ends in 2026. He's making 16.5. What is he going to resign for? Alex Caruso, they just extended him. So now his contract ends in 2028. He's making $20 million a year. Are you going to keep guys like Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins? Isaiah Joe contract ends in 2027. He's making $12 million. Chet Holmgren is up for a contract right now. He's only making $11 million. He just won a championship. What is he going to be making? If Alex Caruso can get an extension for $20 million a year, what is Chet going for? 30? $30 million a year? $35 million a year? Jalen Williams. If Chet is getting $30 to $35 million a year, in my opinion, I think unanimously everybody thinks Jalen Williams was the second best player year round. And definitely in the playoffs. Jalen Williams' contract ends this year. He was only making $5 million. How far does that go up? If Alex Caruso is making 20, Chet's making 11 right now, so he's going to make about 30 to 35. If Chet's making 30 to 35, what is Jalen Williams? 40? 45 million? So between your top three players, you're going to be paying what? 150, almost $150 million between your top three players a year? And somehow you're still going to bring back guys like Cason Wallace. And you already signed Alex Caruso, but you're going to bring up guys like Cason Wallace, the other Jalen Williams, Lou Dort, Isaiah Hartenstein, which in my opinion you need another big body to defend some of the bigger centers. Chet can get blocks, but he doesn't have the frame, the build to stand up against an Embiid. Hopefully he's healthy this season. A Nikola Jokic type of player that's going to get you in the post and back you down. Chet just doesn't have the frame on the body, so I think it's really important to keep Hartenstein. So keeping Hartenstein, Lou Dort, Alex Caruso, one of, hopefully, they sign either Isaiah Joe or Aaron Wiggins. I don't think they're going to be able to sign both of them. The other Jalen Williams, who's making almost $8 million a year. Cason Wallace, whose contract is up in a year. I mean, they. I think. I think they're big on depth and having enough players to allow SGA to rest, which means you have to pay people. And with the salary cap, the second apron, you're just not going to be able to keep them. You're not going to be able to pay all three guys, your top three guys, that type of money and keep your depth. So either you're going to lose your depth or you're going to lose one of your top three guys. And I think you might lose Chet. I think it's responsible to pay SGA, and I think it's responsible to pay Jalen Williams. Worst case scenario, you have to let Chet go. Now, we're not there yet, but that's the reason this team can't be a dynasty. It's because there's too many restrictions to make a team a dynasty where you're paying all three guys $35 plus million. And if SGA continues to stay on this MVP trajectory, continue to win, maybe wins another MVP, maybe another scoring title, in 2030, is he going to get another big contract? And at that point, will he be making $85 million a year? It's just going to keep going up and up. So you're not going to see dynasties. I don't think you're going to see dynasties in the future. In the near future, how about that? You're not going to see a dynasty like we once did. Maybe that's good for the league, maybe it's not. But all in all, to answer kind of those three questions put together, will they repeat? No. I think they have a better chance than any of the other previous teams. Really quickly, when you look at it, Boston Celtics, in my opinion, were a flawed team. When you continually have the better players, the better team, and you continuously lose to the Miami Heat year after year, I think there's no other choice. I understand they won, but there's no other choice but to be a bit skeptical. To be like, well, you've always had the good team, but you somehow lose to an inferior team more than you win. They've lost to inferior teams more than they've won. I think that's reasonable to say. I think with Kristaps' injury history, Drew Holiday's a little bit more injury prone. Plus, he's getting older. Al Horford is old, not old as in, you know, real world old, but NBA world. He's old. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, while they won't ever admit it, I think hopefully when one of those guys retires and they go on a show or a podcast, they can say there was definitely a lot of tension in that locker room, especially coming from Jaylen Brown, where you can win the Finals MVP, you can be the Eastern Conference MVP, and yet the minute Kevin Durant's name is floated in the air, you're the first name on the chopping block. To feel like, I know in Jaylen Brown's head he thinks he's the best player on that Boston Celtics team. To feel like that and constantly you winning the awards. I think the year they won that championship, I think he showed up in those important moments, in those important games, both on the defensive end and the offensive end. You can't just look at Jason Tatum scored 32 points. It was on 31 shots. You can't look at, because that's not efficient. I can score a point a shot. You have to look at the entire game. So in my opinion, I think Jaylen Brown played better on the offensive end. But I think at the very least, it was a wash. It was neck and neck. So if it's neck and neck on the offensive end, Jaylen Brown surpassed Jason Tatum on the defensive end. he was hands down better on the defensive end. So to feel like you were right there with him on offense and 10 times better than him on defense, you win the awards and somehow you're the one that's in the trade talks, that has to cause some tension. And as we saw, the injuries kind of derailed them this season on their quest to repeat. The Denver Nuggets, because again of the money situation, the restrictions, they lost key players like a KCP, a Bruce Brown, who they ended up getting back in free agency, which we'll talk about later. Losing those, they lost another guard. Um, his name starts with a C. It's a hard name, it's a long name, but they lost another guard in the offseason. Just somebody to come off the bench, control the pace, score 10 points, give Jamal Murray a break. You know, not somebody who's going to score 20 a game, but key rotational players are needed in the playoffs. And they lost shooting, they lost defense, they lost their energy plugs and sparks off the bench. They lost those 10 to 15 minutes of rest for certain players. When you're able to bring a Bruce Brown off the bench and let him score and let him control the ball and control the pace, handle the ball. Um, that kind of derailed their season, meaning that Jokic and Jamal Murray had to play 35 to 40 minutes in the regular season, a lot more than they had to. And then when it came to playoff time, they had to play 42 minutes a game. And Jokic being a center, playing 42 minutes a game while giving you 25, 20, and 13, it wasn't sustainable. So I think the OKC situation will be it will be leaning more towards the Denver Nuggets situation, which is there's just not enough money to pay all these guys. To have your depth and your superstar, it's just not enough money. So I don't think they'll repeat. Don't think there will be a dynasty. I do think they'll get a couple more championships within the next 7 to 10 years. I think they'll end with about three. Moving on to the other side of the ball, the Indiana Pacers, it just gets worse and worse for them. They lose Tyrese Halliburton in the NBA Finals in the last possible game of the NBA season. They lose him to a ruptured Achilles. We all saw it. Um, then they lose Miles Turner. Back really quickly, going to talk about Tyrese Halliburton, though. It was a bit confusing to me how when in Game 5 when he got hurt, he went to the locker room. They said it was a calf strain. I know he came back out and played in the game. Clearly hampered. The commentary the next day was like, "Oh, he's fine. It's not that big of a deal. He didn't look too hurt. He came back out and played, so he should be ready for Game 6." It was almost like, "Oh, this is just a little cramp. It was a little, you know, tightness or something like that." I feel like not a lot of people took calf strain injury serious. A lot of people were like, it shouldn't even be a question whether he's going to play. I think it definitely should have been a question, but it should have been a question. It should have definitely been a question whether he should have played, but a question only he should have been able to answer. I think it would have been perfectly fine if he said, "My calf is hurting. I don't want to risk my future," and he didn't play. I think that would have been perfectly fine. I also think it's perfectly fine that he said, "This may be my only chance to win a championship. I don't know what my future holds, but I know that in the present moment I'm in the NBA Finals and it's Game 6 tomorrow. So I'm going to play." And that's what he did. And I think both options would be perfectly fine. But I think the notion and the commentary the next day of it should be no question whether he should play was a bit absurd. And a lack of compassion for the situation, for the player, for the person, and for the injury. And it was heartbreaking to see him go down. Most of us thought this was a big possibility when you say calf strain. Most of us thought it was an Achilles thing, which, if you have a calf strain, it's going to take time. Only time will heal. And unfortunately, uh, it ruptured. Um, so it's going to be a long off season. We all knew he was going to suit up next year, but I guess for extra confirmation, we got the president saying he won't suit up. Um, so it's going to be a long off season for him. But then to turn around as an organization and lose Miles Turner as well. And the reporting that came out yesterday was a little weird to me. Not the actual reporting, but the fact that it was like the Indiana Pacers were prepared to pay Miles Turner what he wanted. Was prepared to pay him $25 million or whatever the amount was, 20 something $million. Wanted him to stay, but they said it was something like the minute they looked up, he was already in contract negotiations with the Milwaukee Bucks. And so there has to be more to that story. I think if you're Miles Turner, there's no way you make it to the NBA Finals. And a week into free agency, if your team is actually trying to get you the money and the deal that you want, the team that just made it to the NBA Finals, you say no, I'm going to go to this team where I don't even know if the best player is going to stay. I'm assuming his agent knew if Miles Turner went to the Milwaukee Bucks, somebody was getting waived. I don't know if they knew it was Dame. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I can't really say on that one. But you had to know Milwaukee didn't have money to just offer you. They had to waive. So they had to get rid of somebody. It was either going to be a collection of players. It was going to be Kyle Kuzma and maybe somebody else, or it was going to be Damian Lillard. And so, if it is true that Indiana Pacers are actually offering him the money that he wanted, the money that he took in Milwaukee, and he still decided to go to Milwaukee, there has to be more there. But for the Indiana man to lose your star player to injury, to be that close to winning the NBA Finals, because I got to tell you the truth, in Game 7, when before he went down, the way Indiana came out, I thought they were going to win the championship. And then after he got hurt, we all saw it, we all knew. The way TJ McConnell came in the game and made an instant impact, and the fact that it seemed as if OKC was in La La Land, and maybe that was a mistake by me to underestimate the leadership of OKC, to understand that in halftime they can just, you know, flip the switch and become the NBA champions. But even at halftime, I said, if TJ McConnell can continue to do this, to lead the team, to score, to control traffic, to control the pace, control the emotions, and if Obi Toppin can just hit some shots and defend, and if Nembhard can just hit some shots and defend, I think if Thomas Bryant could just come in and hit a couple of threes, get to the line, I still had huge hope that the Indiana Pacers were going to pull it off. I honestly thought going into halftime, coming out of halftime, I was ready for this to be a close game, and then OKC blows it open, outscoring them by like 15 in the third quarter, and became your NBA champions. So to go from possibly winning the NBA championship to your star player rupturing his Achilles in Game 7 to your starting center going to another team in the Eastern Conference, it's just been an awful couple of weeks. It's only July. It's been an awful couple of weeks um, for the Indiana Pacers. Speaking of all these injuries, you got Jason Tatum injured. Boston Celtics are, because the East is so wide open, Boston might be the 6th or 7th seed. They're going to be probably the 7th seed, 7th, 8th seed in play-in position. I have to remember that they also got rid of Drew Holiday and Kristaps, and Al Horford's gone. So half the team is basically bye. I have to remind myself of that. So they're probably going to be the seventh, eighth seed. But more importantly, Damian Lillard got waived, so he's going to get his money, but he can now go sign with another team for literally the veterans minimum of $10 million on top of what he's going to be making already. I think that was a crazy move by the Milwaukee Bucks to waive a guy and just let all that money hit your cap. $22.5 million per year. So he can go sign somewhere for $10, $15 million and make over $30 million. And half of that, majority of that money is going to be coming from the Milwaukee Bucks. I would love to see him on a team like the Warriors. I think that would be amazing. Just full transparency, I'm a Warriors fan, but I would love to see him on the Warriors. Um, I think he could definitely make a contender even better. If he doesn't come back 100% of himself, 95, 90, 85, 80% of Damian Lillard is better than 95% of the shooters in the league. And if he comes back and he can just go to a contender, make a team that much better, that much scarier, and he's still going to get his money either way, that's going to be one crazy move to see what he ends up doing. Now to actual trades and free agency. Of course, the big headline is Kevin Durant to Houston, which I thought was just a simple deal. Then out of nowhere, it's a 7-team deal, 7-team trade. Uh, Houston losing Dillon Brooks, Cam Whitmore, and what's the guard they lost? Jalen Green. Losing those three players, but signing Dorian Finney-Smith from the Lakers, which we'll get into later. I don't know what the Lakers are doing. Adding Clint Capella and, of course, Kevin Durant. They're going to be one of the top teams in the Western Conference. I think they're going to be. The Western Conference is so packed, but I think it'll be less packed than it was last year. Houston's going to be up there with OKC, Oklahoma City Thunder, and the only reason I don't put them in the same tier is out of respect for the defending champion. If we went into next season, we said accomplishments aside, previous season aside, how does your roster, how does your team, how are the feelings around your team, your roster, your coaching staff, everything, how is it right now in this moment? If we had to rank it or put it in groups, put it in tiers, I think that first tier of top tier contenders would be the Thunder, the Rockets, and maybe I'm losing it, but I think the Mavericks will be a top 3 seed. I think the Mavericks will be a top 3 seed. And if Kyrie ever comes back at 85% of himself, 90% of himself off that ACL injury, good luck. I think they're going to be pretty much unbeatable. You can't tell me one thing the Mavs don't have. Ball handling point guard. They have it. They have a backup point guard. They have shooting. They have defense. They have a young star. They have height. They have rim protection. I don't know what they don't have. They have good coaching. I really don't know what they don't have if everybody comes back. Well, it's really just Kyrie Irving. If AD can stay healthy and Kyrie Irving comes back like Kyrie Irving, they're going to be almost unbeatable. So that's your top 3 contenders in the West. I think that next year you're going to have the Nuggets and the moves they made. I think you're going to have Minnesota, who's been to the Western Conference Finals they went this year. Last year they went against the Mavs, and Who went to the mat? I mean, who went in 2022-2023 season? Who did Denver face in the Western Conference? Oh my gosh, I'm having a blank. No, Denver faced the Lakers. Okay. So last 2 years, Minnesota has been in the Western Conference Finals, competing for a chance to go to the NBA Finals. So I think that next tier will be Nuggets, Minnesota, Lakers, Warriors. That next tier, so now we have 7 teams. That 8th through 10th spot will not be like it was last year. I think you have 3 solidified teams that'll be the 8th through 10th spot. I think you have the Spurs, the Grizzlies, the Clippers, but not in there. I think Spurs would probably be 8. Spurs, Spurs. I put Spurs at 9. I think Clippers 8, Spurs 9, Grizzlies 10th. Grizzlies 10th, maybe 11th if the Kings, put up a fight this season. So unlike it was last season, going until about a month away from the playoffs, where within that month you had sometimes the Lakers in the playoff. I'm playing. Sometimes the Clippers was in the play-in, Minnesota in the play-in, Warriors in the play-in. You had all these teams, great teams, good teams in the play-in. I think you'll have more solidified kind of teams that are not good, but gonna make it into the play-in. But going back to Houston, the moves they made, of course, are amazing. I think they have a very good chance of winning it all because I don't think whoever comes out the East, I believe, will be completely demolished by the West. Whoever comes out the East, especially now, if LeBron James goes to New York, then it'll be a different conversation. But as it currently stands, as of July 8th, the favorite is New York. If it's New York versus the Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm picking OKC. If it's New York versus the Rockets, I'm picking the Rockets. If it's New York versus a healthy Mavs team, I'm picking the Mavs. If it's New York versus the Nuggets, I'm picking the Nuggets. And in my opinion, it's a toss-up, New York versus the Lakers or the Warriors. It'll be a toss-up, honestly. I think whoever's in the East will get completely demolished by whoever is in the West. Moving on to the Denver Nuggets, who have done a lot of marginal moves that I didn't see them doing. Getting rid of MPJ with his long injury history, and also the fact that if he's not hitting his shots, even if he's hitting his shots, he's a great liability on defense. But if he's not hitting his shots, he's not even on the court mentally. He's physically on the court. Mentally, he's probably buying a hot dog or something in the arena, and he's nowhere near the defensive play. He's nowhere near his assigned man. I don't know what he does on the defensive end, especially if he's not hitting his shots. Um, so trading him away, getting Cam Johnson, bringing back Bruce Brown, getting a guy like Tim Hardaway who averaged about 6 threes a game and can play on the defensive end, uh, not as great of a defender as he used to be, but still can hold his own. And then hopefully everything works out. You have a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, who, especially in the regular season, will give Jokic minutes on the bench where Jokic can actually rest. Not Jokic walks to the bench and literally the other team goes on a 9-0 run. So Jokic gets a 30-second timeout to breathe. Not that type of breather. Actual minutes on the bench. And while Jonas is not a defensive presence, he's going to be a big body, maybe a deterrent sometimes. But so he's not a defensive presence, but he will give you offense and he will give you rebounds. He's going to give you offense and rebounds, not offensive rebounds. So I think that was a great move if everything can work out with that contract situation there. And I think Denver doing some of the small things to add some depth to maybe have 10 guys in the rotation in the regular season to maybe in the playoffs being able to have at least 8 guys and not rely on a 5-man rotation like they did this past season. Being able to bring 3 guys off the bench that can sustain what the starters did or even improve, grow the lead, keep the lead, something like that. To have reliable players, um, I think is going to be a good thing for Denver and puts them right back up in that tier right below OKC, the Rockets, and the Mavs. Moving forward to one of the biggest stories, other than Durant, is of course LeBron James opting into his final year with the Lakers. And the Lakers doing what the Lakers does. Wow, what did I just say? The Lakers doing what they always do. How about that? Which is nothing. Um, Bringing in DeAndre Ayton, who was bought out by the Portland Trailblazers. Just think about that for a moment. The Lakers signed somebody who was bought out by a team who won 36 games last season. Let me see. 36 and 46 for the Portland Trailblazers. They were the 12th seed. That's who he got bought out by. And that's the player the Lakers signed. They lost Dorian Finney-Smith, who Luka has openly said is one of his favorite players, his favorite people in general. You let him go, and then come to find out, instead of trying to sign him and give him more money, when teams were interested in him, you decided the best thing was to go talk to other teams, but talk down on him to make it seem like he wasn't a good player. That was the Lakers' tactic, to talk down about a player who was one of Luka's best friends. That was the idea. And he ended up leaving to go to the Houston Rockets. You don't have Luka signed to an extension. You don't know whether he's coming back to the Lakers. Your other superstar, his agent has gone out and said, we understand the Lakers are preparing for the future. But as far as LeBron and his career and the end of his career and things like that, he wants to win a championship, and so we'll go wherever that feels right for us. One superstar, you don't know if he's staying. The other superstar could be gone as of next week. Potentially. And you're signing people who have been bought out by the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, I really don't know what the Lakers are doing. I almost never know what they're doing, but this is going to be an awful off season. They need tons of shooting. They did nothing. They need a defensive presence, not just somebody. This is not. I don't think they're in the position of the Warriors, where the Warriors have good defensive wings, and they just need somebody who can be a presence at the rim. You actually needed somebody who could protect the rim, and they didn't go get that. DeAndre Ayton is not that. He's somebody who averages 14 and 11, who, if he doesn't get his touches, as reported, will throw temper tantrums, will slam chairs. And the whole idea of he's not going to do that with LeBron in the locker room. For one, you don't know if LeBron's going to be in your locker room. For two, if LeBron does stay, let's not forget DeAndre Ayton had this type of attitude with Chris Paul in the locker room. Chris Paul doesn't have the rings. He doesn't have the banners. He doesn't have the championships. But he's one of the best leaders in the NBA. And DeAndre Ayton didn't care. He did whatever he wanted to do. This is also a locker room that had Monty Williams, considered one of the nicest guys, not even coaches, one of the nicest guys, period, in the league. Monty couldn't deal with it no more. So you're telling me in the LeBron James-led locker room, if LeBron decides to stay, DeAndre Ayton won't do the same thing? God forbid LeBron leaves. Why would he show Luka any respect? He went number one overall in that same draft, not Luka. Is JJ Redick gonna be able to handle that type of attitude, that type of ego? I don't know. Me personally, I don't think he'll be able to do it. I think we'll hear about it in the press conferences. I think he'll show on the bench. I think they have a I think they have Lord. I think they have an Austin Reeves problem. Austin Reeves is up for a contract. Austin Reeves is going to want his money. While he didn't show up, in my opinion, the last 2 seasons, he hasn't shown up in the playoffs. He hasn't given you much of anything. He's a reliable 20-point per game scorer in the regular season, where if Anthony Davis wasn't playing, and it was just LeBron, he stepped in and became the number two. If he had to be the number one, he stepped up and became the number one. Is he a consistent number one? No. Do I think he can be a consistent number two? Yes. And we've seen a great third option. When Luka wasn't there, he stepped in was the two. When Luka and LeBron weren't there, again, he stepped up to be the number one. Again, that kind of flamed out in the playoffs, but who wouldn't want a reliable 20-point per game scorer who can score at all levels, loves the mid-range, can hit the long three, loves to get to the rim. He's a turnstile on defense, but he's a reliable scorer on the offensive end who can play with or without the ball. I think the Lakers might lose Austin Reeves as well. So I think this offseason will end with them playing Jackson Hayes, who was unplayable in the playoffs. JJ Redick did not play him. Playing your starting center 4 minutes in the NBA playoffs is not playing him. That's not playing him. So he was either DNP or 4 minutes. So you paid him again. You paid a guy who was bought out by the Portland Trailblazers. You don't know if Luka's re-signing and coming back to the Lakers. You don't know if LeBron James is going to be on your team. That is the offseason. Within a week and a half, that has been the offseason for the Los Angeles Lakers. We don't know who's keeping their job on the court, and the GM might not even keep his job, Rob Pelinka, because I don't know what he's done. Moving on to more of LeBron, less of the Lakers. There have been 3 teams that have been talked about: Cleveland, the Mavericks, and the Warriors. Then there's a fourth team, the New York Knicks. In my opinion, while it would be an easy trade, LeBron for Karl-Anthony Towns, I don't think I could see LeBron James going to New York to play basketball there. I don't think I could see it. So in my head, New York is out the window. In my head, Cleveland is out the window. Cleveland could have, but with the offseason moves they've made, they can't get him no more. It's not realistic. They would have to give up everybody. It's not realistic for LeBron to go to Cleveland, for Cleveland to get LeBron. And I don't think, personally, LeBron would go back to Cleveland for a third term. A third stint in Cleveland? I don't think he would. So in my opinion, there's 2 teams, the Mavericks and the Warriors. I don't think it's smart for the Mavericks to do it because I think they have a team. I think they have a great team with no weaknesses. And if the weakness might be uh, Kyrie Irving doesn't come back 100%, Anthony Davis might get banged up. That can be your weakness. Other than that, on the court, if all those guys are there, they don't have a defensive problem. They don't have a height problem. Their 4 and their 5 are going to be 7 foot and above. They don't have an athletic problem. They don't have a shooting problem. They don't have a point guard problem. They don't have a depth problem. They don't have a coaching problem. They're very complete. So why would you mortgage half of your depth and roster? You're most likely going to have to give up Klay Thompson, both of your bigs, putting AD back in the 5 position, which he doesn't like to play, for LeBron James. To get LeBron James for a year, maybe 2. Why would you do that? When you traded Luka Doncic for right now, and your right now starts with Cooper Flag. I don't think it would be a wise move for the Mavericks. I don't think they should make it. It would be a fun move to see him in the as a Golden State Warriors. I still think with Stephen LeBron on that team, how you would have to give up Jimmy Butler. It would literally be Jimmy for LeBron James. Maybe LA would have to throw in the pick because Jimmy Butler makes more money. I think he has 2 years. I forgot how much money exactly, but I think LA might have to throw in the pick. But it's pretty much a one-on-one trade, straight up trade. I think it'll be fun. I don't think they'll be. I think they'll be in the same bracket they are right now in terms of Golden State and that second little patch of contenders. Those four teams put together: Lakers, Nuggets, Warriors, Minnesota. I don't think it improves them because I think they need more shooting around. Which, if they got LeBron and were able to sign Dame, I think that's a good team. I think that's a great team. I think you'll have the only weakness will be the same weakness Golden State has had since 2015. No big. I know they had Andrew Bogut and then Zaza Pachulia, whatever you think he's worth, and JaVale McGee, and I guess Jordan Bell. But besides that, they've not had a true center, I guess, since Andrew Bogut. That'd be their weakness. They have defense. They would have depth. They would have shooting. They would have the superstars. I think the Warriors are a realistic move if they can get all the pieces together. And with that trade, they could keep Moses Moody. They could keep Jonathan Kuminga if Kuminga still wants to be on the Warriors, whatever that situation uh, ends up being. But I think the Lakers, going back to the Lakers, I think they have a lot on their hands to deal with. They make all these moves or lack of moves because they want to have enough money and space for 2027, which is in we're going through the 2025-2026 season now. 2026-2027 is the following season. So within one season, they're hoping to have enough money and space to go get another top 10 star to be alongside Luka when they have that right now. Excuse me. When they have that right now. It's confusing. And can't wait to see how all this ends up shaking out. Who ends up being where. Hopefully more surprise trades come down soon in this week. Get back on here and talk about it. But with that being said, that wraps up episode number 1. Hope you have enjoyed the show. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Also go down to the description box. There you will find the links to our TikTok and Instagram. Follow us on both of those platforms. It really helps me out. See you guys in the next episode.